Hello, it's a fantastic day today and I'm glad you're here with me for another episode. In this episode I give you easy ways to spot from which region your 3DS game is, so you won't end up buying the wrong game for your 3DS system. As you might know, the 3DS is region locked, which means, for instance, if you have a US 3DS system and you buy a European game, you can't play this on your US 3DS, and vice versa. If you have a European system, you can play US games on your European 3DS. So I actually did this, made a mistake and end up buying Luigi's Mansion 2 for my 3DS, but when it arrived it was the US version, so I had to buy it a second time. I had to buy the European version. But before we get started, this of course is just my personal experiences that I collected over the last couple of years, my personal opinions. This is not an ultimate guide, this is just to help you out here to find out if your 3DS game is fit for your 3DS system. So here we go. The first thing is there are three major regions. You have the Japanese region, the European region, and the US region. The easiest one to explain is the Japanese region, because in this region only you have Japan. That's the only country and it's easy to spot. First of all, you just have to have a look at the cover and at the back of the cover. If it's in Japanese, you know, okay, this is a Japanese copy. And also in the lower left hand corner is a rating, the 0 rating. And if you see that, you can be sure this is a Japanese copy. This won't work on my European or US 3DS. Then we have the US region, which includes the whole of North America and South America, which is great, and it's easy to spot these. Again, in the lower left hand corner on the cover you have a rating. It's the ESRB rating, which always is kind of black, and you have tilted letters there: E for everyone, T for teen, M for mature, and so on and so forth. And this is a good way to spot if it's a US copy. And also, if you put a US game case next to European game case, you will see they are slimmer. The US ones are slimmer. This will change in the future because they announced re-releases of 3DS games, and I think they want to make them slimmer also. But as of now, and again, there's a majority of games out there, if it's a slim case and has the ESRB rating, you can be sure this is the US version. Now we come to the European region, which is a bit more complex because the European region includes dozens and dozens of countries. Like with the Japanese and the US regions, it is easy to spot a European version by just having a look at the rating in the lower left hand corner. If it's a PEGI rating, you can be sure this is from Europe. There's one exception, that's Germany. They have a different rating in the lower left hand corner, which is the FSK rating. It's a bigger logo, has a transparent background, and this is easy to spot a German version. And like I said, the European region includes lots of countries with lots of different kind of languages, so there's different kind of things that you can do to find out if it's the right version for your system. Again, you can play them all on a European 3DS, but sometimes you want to have an English version of a game because you don't speak French or vice versa. So one thing that you can do is turn the cover around and have a look at the back of the cover, because there you can see from which country the version is that you have. Sometimes it's in Spanish, sometimes it's in German or in French or whatever, in English, so on and so forth. So this is a good way to also check from which country within Europe the game is. And also on the back of the cover for most of the European games, go to the bottom and you will have right next to the original Nintendo seal of quality a box where it has lots of handy informations, for instance, in which language you can play the software, in which language the manual is, and also on which systems you can play this game. So this is also a quite handy little neat trick that you can use to find out in which language, for instance, you can play the game. This is not on all the boxes, but in most of the cases at the bottom of the back of the case you will find these informations. And another thing which I think is the best thing to spot from which country your 3DS game is in the European region is have a look at the spine. At the bottom of the spine there's this small little triangle, the Nintendo triangle, and this can have different kind of colors. Green, for instance, means it's a UK version, blue, for instance, means it's the German version, red is France. So there are almost 50 colors actually. This is way too much to cover here in this video, so I left a link down in the description box below. You can go down there and check out from which regions, from which countries your games are. And again, so many different colors. I think the most common one for me personally is the green one, the green little triangle at the corner, because it's the UK version. It's always in English, and yeah, I can play these games on my European 3DS and I can play them in English. And also for the European region, an awesome thing to know is that Europe and Australia share the same region. So this means you can actually play Australian games on your European 3DS and vice versa. You can buy European games and play them on your Australian 3DS system. This is a neat little thing to know. And if you ask yourself how to spot an Australian version, it's quite easy. Again, like with all the other versions, go to the front cover and at the lower left hand corner you will find the Australian rating, which in this case is a bit more stretched, and except the G rating, they all have also like a text field with some information about the rating. So yeah, it's quite easy to spot. such a nice little handy thing that you can play Australian games on your European 3DS and vice versa. So yeah, don't shy away from these. Sometimes, in some cases, you will find a game that you thought might have been out of stock or when too expensive. You can find this actually in another country and can play this on your 3DS. It's such a nice little thing to have. And another thing here is the cartridges are quite easy to spot. Just have a look at the rating. On the cartridge is the ESRB rating or the Sarah rating or the FSK rating, and this way you can spot from which country the game cartridge is if you buy games used and not sealed or cartridge only, for instance. The reason why I tell you this is in many cases for European games you have settings where you can set the language or you set your system to the language that you want to play the games in and so on and so forth. But it's not like with the Switch where everything is region free and you have the option as a default. Some 3DS games actually only come in that language. So for instance, if you end up buying like an Italian game, for instance, it might be possible that it's only in Italian and not in English. So be careful, be aware of that. In most cases, you have the option within Europe to change the settings to, I think, the most common spoken languages like English and French, Spanish, German, Italian and stuff like that. But in some cases it might be possible that this is really stuck to its country, that you only can play it in that language. It's actually happened to me. I was buying a German version of a 3DS game and it only was in German. I couldn't set it to English, so yeah, this is just to help you out here. So that's it for this episode. This is how to spot from which region the 3DS game is that you are about to buy and that you don't make the mistake and buy the wrong game for your 3DS system. I really hope this was helpful for you. I really hope you enjoyed this, and I see you in the next episode. Until then, take care. Bye bye.